finally, after 4 trips to fill up the thing, I came back and I said, Dad, no more tea. I'm sorry, we're out of tea. And he said, what do you mean we're out of tea? I said, the toilet's empty.
Few characters have captured hearts and imaginations like Pee-wee Herman, the quirky, childlike comedian who defied categorization during the 80s. But behind the colorful bow tie and infectious laughter, there was a shadowy story few knew, a tale of shocking arrests, secret obsessions, and a fall from grace that stunned fans and the entertainment world alike. How does a man famous for childhood innocence become engulfed in scandalous controversy and dark allegations? Today, we dive into the hidden chapters of Pee-wee Herman's legacy, revealing the tangled web behind the character and the man who lived in his shadow. Arrest and public shock. In July 1991, the world's perception of Pee-wee Herman, the beloved childhood icon, shattered overnight when Paul Reubens was arrested for indecent exposure at an adult movie theater in Sarasota, Florida. What many didn't realize at first was that it was Reubens himself behind the character, the mild-mannered comedian who had captivated children and adults alike for years. The arrest sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry and among fans, igniting a media frenzy that quickly turned from fascination to condemnation. Reubens's mugshots flooded the news, a stark contrast to the cheerful persona he had carefully maintained for so long. Reaction was swift and severe. Networks pulled reruns of Pee-wee's Playhouse and any other shows connected to the actor, effectively blackballing him from mainstream television for over a decade. Public opinion fractured. Some saw Reubens's actions as a betrayal of the innocence Pee-wee symbolized, while others argued the scandal was blown out of proportion. Supporters rallied, but the damage to his career and reputation was undeniable. The arrest marked a turning point that cast a long shadow over the once celebrated entertainer. Behind the headlines and public judgment was a man who had struggled with the weight of living in an alter ego's shadow for years. Reubens had long avoided being seen outside the Pee-wee Herman character, blurring the lines between himself and his creation. This blending made the arrest all the more jarring for those who found it hard to reconcile the man with the innocent, whimsical figure he portrayed. It raised uncomfortable questions about identity, fame, and the pressures that come with public personas. The fallout extended beyond just Reubens himself. The industry distanced itself, and his fan base fractured. Reruns were canceled nationwide, endorsements vanished, and opportunities for work dried up. For a man who had been so inseparable from a beloved character, the consequences felt like an exile from the entertainment world. What once was a household staple for children suddenly became a source of scandal and shame. The arrest also sparked broader conversations about privacy, morality, and the unforgiving nature of fame. How much of a public figure's private life should define their career? As the media dissected every detail of the case, debates emerged around the fairness of the reaction, especially given the nature of the charges and the fact that they did not involve direct victims in the traditional sense. Yet, this nuance was often lost amid sensational headlines and public outcry. Behind closed doors, Reubens faced the challenge of rebuilding a fractured identity. Stripped of the Pee-wee Herman persona by legal and social forces, he was left grappling with his own self-image. Longtime colleagues and insiders hinted at how deeply the character had consumed him, making personal recovery a complex road. The arrest marked not just a legal issue, but a psychological and emotional reckoning for the comedian. Despite the scandal and the downfall, Paul Reubens never entirely disappeared. His commitment to his craft and occasional appearances kept a flicker of his presence alive in the entertainment world. Fans and sympathizers saw beyond the headlines, understanding that the man behind Pee-wee was more complicated than the headlines portrayed. What unfolded after the arrest would continue to paint a troubling but compelling picture. But before we get into the darkest parts of Paul Reubens' life, we should first understand how Pee-wee Herman came to be, the origins of the character that would both make and unmake him. The birth of Pee-wee Herman. Paul Reubens' journey to creating Pee-wee Herman was anything but straightforward. Growing up in Sarasota, Florida, he was exposed to the whimsical world of circus arts and theater, nurturing a fondness for performance early on. His father's legacy as a military pilot and his mother's work as a teacher also shaped a complex family background, blending discipline and creativity. After high school, Reubens pursued acting with vigor, despite initial setbacks, including rejection from Juilliard. He discovered a unique path with the Groundlings, an improvisational comedy troupe in Los Angeles, where he experimented with numerous characters, voices, and costumes. Pee-wee Herman emerged during a 1978 improv exercise. A hapless, awkward man desperate to be funny, but evidently failing. It was a character Reubens could switch on at will, an alter ego that felt distinct yet connected deeply to his own struggles and sense of humor. This creation became a lightning rod for his early career. In the years that followed, Reubens refined Pee-wee Herman, developing the character's peculiar charm and trademark personality. Initially, the act carried adult-oriented humor, full of subtle but bold, intimate innuendos. It was a far cry from the children's entertainer version that would later become famous. This early phase showcased a complexity in Pee-wee that many did not expect from what became a beloved children's icon. Reubens' ability to inhabit Pee-wee became so pronounced that he resisted appearing publicly without the character's signature look, his colorful suit, quirky ties, and trademark hairstyle. This blending of actor and alter ego created a powerful, almost inseparable identity. For years, interviews and appearances were conducted in character, reinforcing the mystique and deepening the public's connection to Pee-wee rather than to Paul Reubens himself. His creative control sorta expanded as he started to conceive Pee-wee's Playhouse, co-creating characters and then overseeing production too, kind of hands-on. This live-action children's program was not just entertaining, but also, in a way, pretty innovative, mixing learning with surreal humor that kids liked and adults kinda got as well. You can see the influence from classic 50s children's shows, and Reubens brought a lively offbeat style to it, so it didn't feel like the usual programming at all. Before long, Pee-wee Herman became a full-on pop culture phenomenon. Merchandise showed up fast, dolls, toys, and even a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame signs that the character's reach was huge. Then came awards, plus a good amount of critical praise, with the show grabbing multiple Emmy Awards and getting that cult-like status. In the end, the character kind of moved past its original roots, turning into a symbol of strange but also lovable childhood whimsy. And yet, even with all that success, the character's dual appeal, being both a kid's role model and at the same time a channel for adult innuendo, would later help set up the difficulties Paul Reubens faced. Still, at this point, Pee-wee Herman was basically uncontested as a cultural icon, adored by all kinds of audiences and staying firmly in the spotlight. As Pee-wee Herman's popularity soared, his unique blend of humor and charm brought him into living rooms everywhere and into the far corners of pop culture. Rise to stardom. By the early 80s, Pee-wee Herman was no longer just a quirky comedy character. He had become a multimedia sensation. Reubens' inventive energy fueled a busy touring schedule, taking the show to theaters across the country, including prestigious venues like Carnegie Hall and New York's Caroline's Comedy Club. Audiences and critics alike marveled at the performance's originality. Even as some found it weird or bizarre, Pee-wee was captivating in his strangeness. 1985 marked a significant turning point with the release of Pee-wee's Big Adventure, directed by Tim Burton. This full-length feature film was a critical and commercial success, further solidifying Pee-wee's place in pop culture and expanding his audience. The movie's quirky storytelling and eccentric humor resonated widely, making it a cult favorite and a milestone in Reubens' career. Following the film's success, Reubens launched Pee-wee's Playhouse in 1986, a children's television show that combined education and surreal comedy. Produced on a budget comparable to primetime sitcoms, it was innovative in both concept and execution. The show won a total of 15 Emmy Awards during its run and became recognized as one of the decade's top cult classic programs. Celebrities and cultural icons took notice, with Pee-wee appearing alongside stars like Cher and making appearances on talk shows and award ceremonies. The character's reach extended into advertising campaigns and merchandise, including talking dolls and toys that became a staple of 80s children's playrooms. Pee-wee Herman was everywhere, on screens, shelves, and in the hearts of fans young and old. Even with all that huge popularity, Rubens still kept this kind of firm little line between his public self and his private life, sort of locked up. He really did not like getting photographed when he wasn't in character, because it made the whole idea stick that Pee-wee Herman was a different universe from Paul Rubens himself. That split, it helped the mystery and the charm, but it also sort of hid the personal battles that would show up later, once the curtain finally moved. In the same stretch, Rubens's creative direction kept growing. He brought in fresh characters and these whimsical bits, and somehow it made the playhouse feel anarchic, but also carefully planned. The show's layered jokes let grown-ups catch those tiny hints and innuendos underneath what looked like a kid's format. It was like he understood the audience mood and how it shifts way more deeply than you'd expect. Still, as things got bigger, the attention got sharper too. Pee-wee Herman, with that mix of childlike sweetness and adult themes, was basically a tightrope for some people. Even though millions adored it, the oddball tone and the controversies sitting in the background would leave Rubens exposed when the public fallout arrived with later events. This meteoric rise made the abrupt fall even more shocking, setting the stage for the difficult years that would follow. The dual audience appeal. Pee-wee Herman was a character unlike most others in television history, straddling the line between children's programming and adult humor. Paul Rubens initially crafted Pee-wee's act with a sharper edge, filled with subtle, intimate innuendos and quips that were clearly designed for mature audiences. This layered approach meant that while kids were drawn to the whimsy and colorful outlandishness, adults picked up on hidden jokes and social satire. The dual-layered humor helped Pee-wee Herman stand out, making the character appealing on multiple levels. As Pee-wee's fame grew, Rubens deliberately toned down the more adult-oriented content to broaden his audience, particularly when moving into children's television with Pee-wee's Playhouse. This shift made the show more family-friendly, while still retaining a quirky, offbeat charm that captivated viewers of all ages. The program balanced basic lessons about kindness and behavior with surreal and often bizarre humor that only adults would fully appreciate. It was this intricate balance that contributed to the show's widespread popularity and critical acclaim. This blending of adult humor with children's programming created a complicated dynamic. On one hand, the show taught lessons about morality, honesty, and friendship, providing a positive foundation for young viewers. On the other hand, the cheeky undertones and occasional suggestive jokes meant that older viewers could enjoy a very different experience. This made Pee-wee's Playhouse a unique piece of television that challenged the conventional wisdom of children's programming at the time. Paul Rubens was conscious of the risks involved in this approach. He understood that pushing the boundaries could alienate certain audiences or lead to controversy, but he also believed in the artistic potential of mixing the whimsical with the subversive. This creative choice turned Pee-wee Herman into more than a children's character. It became a cult figure that represented rebellion, innocence, and curiosity all at once. The show's 15 Emmy Awards and place among the top 10 cult classic TV programs attest to its unique place in entertainment history. Despite the show's success with its broad audience, there was always a lingering tension about Rubens's public persona and how closely audiences connected him to Pee-wee rather than to himself. He refused for many years to be photographed or interviewed without the Pee-wee persona, blurring the line between actor and character. Friends and collaborators noted that Pee-wee was almost like an alter ego Rubens could switch on and off, but sometimes it felt less like acting and more like living inside that character. This fusion of identities fueled public fascination, but also made it difficult for Rubens to establish a separate personal identity. The creative genius who had built Pee-wee's world was in danger of being consumed by it, trapped inside a role that brought both immense success and crushing pressures. The audience loved Pee-wee as an icon of childhood fun, while Paul silently struggled with the weight of his creation. Commercially, Pee-wee's unique double appeal translated into a wide range of merchandise, including talking dolls, toys, and apparel that were marketed to children but often collected by adults. The character's image was ubiquitous, appearing on talk shows and commercials and award presentations, cementing Pee-wee Herman as a cultural phenomenon of the 80s. This cross-generational influence showcased how the character had woven itself into the fabric of popular culture, both as a child-friendly hero and a subtle adult satire. When Paul Rubens's private struggles finally caught up with him in 1991, the world watched as his career unraveled in shocking fashion. The 1991 arrest and fallout. In July 1991, Paul Rubens's world came crashing down when he was arrested in Sarasota, Florida, for indecent exposure at an adult movie theater. The incident stunned fans and industry insiders alike, as the jovial, childlike Pee-wee Herman had been a beloved figure for years. What made the arrest so jarring was the profound disconnect between the innocent public persona of Pee-wee and the nature of the charges. The media coverage was immediate and intense, casting Rubens not just as a fallen star, but as a scandalous figure. The consequences for Rubens were swift and far-reaching. Networks pulled reruns of Pee-wee's Playhouse and canceled plans for future projects involving him. This industry-wide blacklisting effectively ended his mainstream career for more than a decade. Public opinion fractured abruptly, leaving many to question how a man so intertwined with a figure of childhood innocence could be involved in such controversy. The impact rippled across the entertainment world, changing how celebrities' private lives were scrutinized. Yet, the public reactions were not universally condemning. A groundswell of support emerged from devoted fans and fellow entertainers who argued that the response was disproportionate or unfair. Some pointed out that the act had no direct victims in a traditional sense, and protests even flocked to defend him, rallying in places like New York's Greenwich Village. The debate about privacy rights, morality, and celebrity judgment grew heated during this tumultuous period. Despite this support, the damage to Rubens's career was deep. He faced legal penalties, including a no-contest plea that led to community service and probation. These legal consequences, coupled with the social fallout, forced him into near obscurity. The once celebrated comedian found himself sidelined, his name now synonymous with controversy rather than comedy. Rubens's persona as Pee-wee Herman was so dominant that the scandal blurred the lines for many between actor and character. He had long resisted public appearances without the Pee-wee makeup and costume, effectively hiding behind the character. This blending of identities became a double-edged sword. While it built his fame, it complicated his personal reputation when the scandal erupted. The arrest also exposed previous encounters with the law, including past arrests related to adult theaters, though those cases had not resulted in convictions. These incidents, viewed in hindsight, painted a troubling picture of private habits contrasted starkly with the public innocence Pee-wee embodied. The revelations added layers of complexity to public understanding of Rubens' life. While Rubens faced these challenges, years later, another chapter would unravel, revealing even deeper and darker struggles hidden behind the scenes. The 2001 raid and legal battle. A decade after his initial downfall, Paul Rubens's life took another devastating turn in 2001 when his home was raided by law enforcement based on allegations involving explicit materials. Police seized more than 30,000 items, including photographs and vintage films depicting minors engaged in explicit acts. The quantity and nature of the seized materials shocked the public and intensified scrutiny of Rubens, reigniting questions about the man behind Pee-wee Herman. This raid opened one of the darkest chapters in his life, shrouded in legal complexity and media sensationalism. The investigation was sparked by a tip from a 14-year-old boy to the Los Angeles Police Department, prompting a thorough search of Rubens' residence. Reports indicated that among the seized evidence were 20 to 30 Polaroids of underage boys, some partially clothed and others performing solo acts. The collection also included vintage 8mm films featuring similar content. These disturbing findings painted a far grimmer portrait than previous controversies and deeply affected public perception. Despite the seriousness of the charges, much of the legal process remained shrouded in secrecy. Attempts to access court documents were met with resistance, as the Los Angeles court restrictively classified the case under high security, limiting public view. This lack of transparency fueled speculation and conspiracy theories, leaving many questions unanswered regarding case details, evidence handling, and judicial decisions. The elusive nature of the case hampered a full understanding of the events and outcomes. Paul Rubens' legal defense was led by Blair Burke, a high-profile attorney known for handling sensitive and controversial cases involving celebrities. Burke argued technicalities surrounding the collection, including a pivotal claim about the statute of limitations preventing prosecution for materials created before certain laws were enacted. She portrayed Rubens as a collector of erotic art, rather than a criminal, seeking to frame the materials in a more acceptable historical context. Such legal strategies sparked debates about definitions and legality concerning explicit content and collectors' rights. The prosecution eventually dropped one count in 2004 as part of a plea deal, and the remaining charges were dismissed in 2007 under California's provisions, allowing petitioners who completed sentences to seek dismissal. Still, Rubens admitted possession of at least 170 images of minors with exposed genitalia and was required to register as an explicit offender. The gravity of these admissions contrasted starkly with public nostalgia for Pee-wee Herman, complicating his legacy and the public's ability to separate character from creator. Meanwhile, a few prominent figures were out there weighing in on the whole controversy. Some kind of rallied behind him, saying things like due process and to not rush into judgment until the full facts actually show up. Others pushed back hard about how lenient the plea deal sounded, and they basically shrugged off the attempts to tidy up what the materials really were. The whole spread of opinions really shows the awkward problem society has when it's forced to look at the misdeeds of beloved entertainers, like trying to keep justice on one side while fandom pulls the other way, and skepticism runs into empathy, and neither one quite wins. Inside the court of public opinion, the revelations ended up clobbering Rubens's image, for many, beyond repair. The allegations had this layered complexity and darkness to them, and that added a feeling of betrayal for fans who once treated Pee-wee Herman as an emblem of fun and like innocence too. For some people, it became the final nail in the coffin of a career already fractured, while for others it felt like a tragic chapter unfolding from a troubled soul. Still, even with all that weight, Rubens's own personal account and the people close to him painted a picture of a man under immense pressure and wrestling with personal demons. His repeated claim that he was being blackmailed, plus how his collection was described as kitschy eroticism, gave the impression of someone trying to keep a sense of dignity while dealing with overwhelming sins. But those defenses did little to reduce the damage his reputation took, or the serious concerns that came up around him possessing illegal images. The road back to visibility was slow and uncertain, but Paul Rubens sought to reclaim some measure of his career through new projects and roles, attempts at comeback. After years of relative obscurity and legal woes, Paul Rubens attempted to rebuild his public image and career in the late 90s and early 2000s. He appeared in supporting roles in films like Blow and Mystery Men, signaling a tentative return to mainstream Hollywood. While these roles were far from stardom, they allowed Rubens to remind audiences of his enduring talent beyond the Pee-wee Herman persona. Rubens also ventured into television, notably hosting the game show You Don't Know Jack, a quirky, irreverent series that blended trivia with comedy. His turn as host showcased his unique comedic timing and spontaneity, helping him regain some visibility among new audiences. It was a step toward distancing himself from previous scandals while reconnecting with the entertainment world on his own terms. Throughout these years, Rubens undertook sporadic public appearances, occasionally referencing Pee-wee Herman, but never fully returning to the character that had defined his career. Interviews revealed a man cautious yet reflective, still grappling with the complex legacy of his past and his fractured public image. Despite the setbacks, there was a palpable desire to move forward and redefine himself. However, the shadow of his past indiscretions loomed large. His history often colored public and professional perceptions, influencing casting decisions and opportunities. In a world quick to judge, the gravity of prior controversies complicated efforts to regain trust and respect in the industry. Rubens's journey back was marked by both small victories and ongoing challenges. In addition to acting roles and hosting gigs, Rubens filed legal actions related to his iconic Pee-wee Herman props and memorabilia, illustrating his determination to protect what remained of his creative legacy. Though the outcomes of such lawsuits were often veiled in confidentiality, they underscored the continuing entanglement of his personal and professional lives. Media coverage during this revival phase remained cautious, often juxtaposing his career efforts with remembrances of his legal troubles. Some commentators expressed sympathy, noting the resilience required to endure public disgrace, while others remained critical, wary of forgiving past transgressions. This divided reception underscored the complexity of rehabilitating a reputation so deeply marred. Still Rubens kept those connections with a bunch of entertainment figures, and every now and then his appearances kind of implied he still had that little foothold in certain niche circles. There were clips and photos, backstage at events, or him working with contemporary artists, and it all suggested this guarded but ongoing involvement in the creative community. Little moments like that showed a man quietly persevering, even while everything around him felt like turmoil. In the later years of his life, Rubens's public image sort of steadied, not completely, but enough to seem more fixed in place. It blended nostalgia for his past work with a more direct acknowledgement of the imperfect legacy he left behind. He stayed a figure people couldn't quite stop looking at, part icon, part cautionary tale, and his story pushed reflection on fame, fallibility, and the possibility of redemption. In the end, Paul Rubens's attempts at a comeback point to a deeper human struggle, the longing to reclaim identity and purpose after public disgrace, even when the past can't be slipped away from that easily. The complexities of this journey lead us to consider how his life and career will be remembered amid acclaim and controversy. Legacy and controversy. Paul Rubens's life and career remain a complicated mosaic of artistic innovation and deeply troubling allegations. While Pee-wee Herman brought joy to millions and became an enduring cultural icon, the darker aspects of Rubens's private life have permanently complicated his legacy. The man who invented one of the most recognizable characters of the 80s passed away in 2023 after a lengthy battle with cancer, leaving behind a story intertwined with both adoration and scandal. For many fans, Pee-wee Herman is a symbol of childhood wonder and eccentric humor, an innocent reminder of a simpler time. The show's influence on children's television and pop culture is undeniable, having introduced a blend of creativity, surrealism, and education that few other programs have matched. His work earned dozens of awards and a place on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, cementing Pee-wee's status in entertainment history. Yet, behind this public persona, Rubens struggled privately with an identity tied so closely to a character that it blurred the lines between reality and performance. His refusal to be seen outside of Pee-wee's look and voice revealed a man consumed by his alter ego. This self-imposed enclosure likely contributed to the challenges he faced when his personal controversies emerged in the public eye. The gravity of the legal troubles involving explicit materials and the arrest at the adult theater cast a long, dark shadow over his reputation. Public and industry reactions were mixed, but often unforgiving, with many finding it difficult to reconcile the beloved children's entertainer with the seriousness of the accusations. This dichotomy continues to haunt discussions about his life and career. Some sympathizers argue that Rubens faced disproportionate consequences, noting inconsistencies in the handling of his cases and a lack of full transparency. Others emphasize the need to acknowledge the harm caused by the possession of illicit images, regardless of celebrity. This ongoing debate reflects broader societal struggles with justice, forgiveness, and the complicated nature of celebrity. In his later years, Rubens tried to reclaim a few parts of his career, while also trying to live with how the public's perception was kinda split. Some of his sporadic roles and appearances looked like resilience, like he still wanted to be seen as more than just the scandal. Still, a lot of people watched those comebacks from the sidelines, pretty cautious, because a bunch of things about his past never really got settled. There's also this whole mystery vibe around certain legal documents, plus the secrecy around some court proceedings. That combination, adds extra layers and basically keeps the speculation going, with no clear answers. It could be privacy, or legal strategy, or even some brand of institutional protectionism. But the missing pieces in the public record keep stirring up curiosity and suspicion about the full shape of the story. And in later life, his associations didn't help much either. His appearances alongside controversial figures made observers raise eyebrows, especially people who already knew those circles well. Paul Rubens's life was marked by incredible success and profound controversy, forever entwining his legacy with both laughter and darkness. His story reminds us that public figures are complex, and that fame often comes with hidden costs. If you found this deep dive insightful, please like and subscribe for more stories that look beyond the surface. Thanks for watching.